So I knew very early on that I was going to be a rebel. The way I laid inside my mom, I didn't get proper blood flow to my right leg that made my right leg shorter than my left leg. I also was trying to come out the womb telling everyone to kiss my butt first. So I knew at an early age that something bad, or for me, good was going to happen. I grew up in the city of St. Louis, not too far from here, but I went to a school that was about 25 minutes from my house. I went to Parkway that was in the county, and I definitely appreciated at a very early age getting that diversity. Being able to go to a school with individuals that didn't look like me, have different backgrounds as me, or have a different religion. But at an early age, I also knew that something wasn't right. See, when I would travel out to Parkway 25 minutes from my house, I would look at the sun and it seems brighter, the grass would seem greener, even the air kind of seemed a little better tasting. But when I would go back home to my own community, I would feel like an animal in a cage. No opportunities to thrive, being harassed by the police, not even a playground so we can even play. During my high school career, I was not just going to school at Parkway, I also went to a trade school, taking up heating and cooling. See, my parents had student debt, my brother had student debt, and that's just not a cycle I wanted to continue after. So after high school, I went to St. Louis Community Park, and also got very involved in different programs and different community events that took place outside of Forest Park Community College. I transferred from McDonald's as I worked out in the county, and I transferred that job down to Jimmy John's in the city. We all know what Jimmy John's is, ding dong, freaking fast, right? One day when I was at work at Jimmy John's, a customer came in, and he got a sandwich, he got a chips, and he got a soda. That total came out to be about $10.50. At the time, he had asked me right before he had left, he said, "How much do you make?" I said, $7.50. He said, "So you're telling me that sandwich, that soda, and that chips is more than your income?" I said, "Yeah." Like, "Don't you deserve more?" "Of course I do." He said, "So imagine an hour, 10 customers come to get a sandwich, a chips, and a soda. Now imagine 12 hours, and you're only getting paid $7.50? I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's just a job, right?" But he said, "You're worth more than that." And he told me that workers all across the country, starting in New York City, was stepping up, demanding a higher wage and a union. And honestly, I thought he was crazy, because eventually he wanted me to kind of walk off the job. He wanted me to step up and say, "I deserve more." And while I knew I deserved more, I knew this low-wage job that I had at the time helped me try to get out of my mom's house. This job also had helped me make sure that my mother had essential stuff like detergent. It had helped me make sure that I had a little money in my pocket. Until one day when I was at work, and I was on the sandwich board making sandwiches. Once again, Jimmy John's is fast, so everything we do is freaky fast. And after lunch hour, my area manager came up to me, and he wrote on a white piece of paper, "I made 3 wrong sandwiches." He took another white piece of paper and he wrote on it, "I was 13 seconds over drive-through time." He took the piece of paper, he told me to hold that one that said I made 3 wrong sandwiches. He called my friend over, he said, "Hold this one that said I was 13 seconds over drive-through time." And he took out his cell phone and he took a picture of us. Who knows where the picture went? But I was so humiliated, along with my coworker, that we didn't know what to do. And then it had hit me. That guy that came in that talked about us having better rights on the job. I called him up. Me and my coworkers had went to an office. We looked how New York workers was walking off the job demanding higher pay and a union. And we were nervous. But from there we started organizing. We started talking to other coworkers and saying, "Hey, how we're working overtime and not getting all the money we deserve." We started talking to other coworkers and asking them how they felt on the job when the manager told them to go home after a 2-hour shift instead of working a 5-hour shift. On May 8th, one of the best things happened. 5 of my coworkers and myself walked off the job. And trust me, we were nervous because we didn't have any protections. We could have been fired. They could have easily hired someone else. But 5 of us walked off the job in demand of higher pay or respect. The next day, we were accompanied by clergy, faith leaders, union members, and community members that wanted to make sure that we got back on the job safely. When we went back to work the next day, we had got some good news. Our area manager that made us hold that sign that said, "I made 3 wrong sandwiches," and that she was 13 seconds over drive-through time, was no longer there. The next day, 60 other fast food industries and other workers had walked off the job demanding a higher pay and a union. From there, we went on to organizing stores all across the St. Louis city, to the St. Louis County, to eventually taking our power down to the Board of Aldermen, where we passed legislation where we end up getting a higher wage for the city of St. Louis and for 32,000 workers all across the city. And then something happened. August 9th. At the time, I was working at National Alamo. I left Jimmy John's to get a better job. And I picked up my phone, and I seen an article from Fox News that said a young man was killed in Canfield. And then I continued to scroll on, KSDK, same thing. And the first thought in my mind, because to be honest, this wasn't the first time I heard something like this. It's not the first time I've seen something like this. So I didn't really think anything was going to happen. And I got off. And then I went on Twitter. For us that are social media savvy, Twitter's a lot more rapid. You can see things more in real time. And when I got on Twitter, I seen how this young man's body was still on a hot pavement in August for 4.5 hours. I seen how a community was being treated as if they were wrong and being forced out. I seen how a police force had brought dogs in multiple units on a community that was trying to grieve. So I called my friend Janina, one of the leaders in the Fight for 15 movement, to ask. She stayed out there, what's going on? People are coming out to the streets, what's happening? She told me that a young man was killed, and they laid his body out there for 4 hours, and they did nothing about it. So the next day, we used our skills from the Fight for 15 organizing for months and months to try to get justice around having a higher wage and a union to take it out to the streets of Ferguson. But we quickly found that our organizing skills from the Fight for 15 movement wasn't the same that we was going to be able to transition over into Ferguson. We found ourselves turning from organizers to protesters. We found ourselves trying to keep everyone calm to also saying no justice, no peace. The beautiful thing, though, about Ferguson and what happened is when young people had came together that didn't know each other from a can of paint, was able to move mountains. Ferguson became the second spark movement in history, longest spark movement in history. Ferguson created a change not just for St. Louis, but for our whole country, for our whole region. The young people was able to create something that we didn't know what we had got going on. We didn't know each other. We didn't know what we were going to do, but we knew at the end of the day we wanted to see justice. And even though we were pepper sprayed, even though we were tear gassed, even though there was tanks on West Florissant with guns pointed down at us, our energy, our resilience, and our resistance was at an all-time high. See, what people won't be able to see from the movement such as the Fight for 15 or from what happened in Ferguson is all the relationships that was made and the beauty that came out of it. It wasn't just young people going to the streets every single day saying no justice, no peace. There was a lot of organizing happening behind closed doors. There was a lot of relationships building. And we also understood that it was deeper than just police brutality. Because Ferguson wasn't just in Ferguson. Ferguson was in Dalewood. Ferguson was in St. Louis City. And Ferguson was everywhere later on, as we've seen, from Eric Gardner to Jeannie Powell to Tamir Rice to Sandra Bland, that it was everywhere. It was a system that has been around for so long that have said that certain people's lives does not matter. And that's why we say Black Lives Matter, because we understand that at the end of the day, everyone has to be treated equally, no matter the color of your skin. But we also understand that certain people's skin color are not being treated fairly. Because of your skin color, you're not having the same access to certain resources. Due to your skin color, you're not having the same access to be treated fairly when you walk down your streets. And we understood that it was just deeper than being out in the streets, that we had to take it beyond that. We had to take it from just the streets, but we had to be in the boardrooms. We had to be at the table, or we were on the menu. The governor created a commission to study what was the best practices that we can create after this situation. And I was hesitant to apply, but I remember there was this one organizer, Laura Greenwich, that told me that either you're going to be in the room, being with the decision makers, and having a voice at the table, or you're going to let people make the decision for you and for your community. So I applied for the Ferguson Commission that former Governor Jay Nixon eventually appointed me on. And we came up with a Ferguson Commission report that highlighted a lot of key things that we wanted to see different, not just in Ferguson, but across the whole region. From there, we was able to take the power that we created in Ferguson all the way to the White House, where me and 5 other activists from St. Louis, from New York City to Ohio, got to meet with President Obama to talk about police brutality and how we actually fixed it. But we just didn't stop there. Because you know, young people, we are amazing and we're resilient. And sometimes they tell us that we need to sit down because we have too much energy, but that energy is exactly what we need to change the world. And from there, we went from just protests and we moved it into politics. And a lot of activists that was out in Ferguson that was demanding justice, not just for Mike Brown, not just for police brutality, not just for fair wages, not just for adequate opportunities in communities all across and not just in certain parts. We moved that energy into politics because we understood that we needed representation all across the board. We can't just be in the streets. We also have to be at the table. We have to be writing laws. We have to be making decisions. And we have to be passing policy that affects our generation and affects our community. Several of us ran for office, and in my case, I didn't win the first round. I had to go through a special election, historic in the city of St. Louis, also with State Rep Bruce Franks. But with the power of the people, we won the second time, making me the second youngest elected official in St. Louis and the first youngest African-American youngest committee man. The thing is, out of all the movements from the Fight for 15 to Ferguson, what people will not see and what they will not uplift is the amount of young people that took to the streets, the amount of young people that demanded we needed more jobs, the amount of young people that said no more. We may not have a plan, we may not have a blueprint, we may not exactly know where we're going, but at the end of the day, we do have a vision, and that vision means everybody, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your race, no matter your religion, no matter your background. Young people are resilient, and we are bright, and we want to see a world that works for everybody. And in those movements, it was always the young people that was at the forefront, demanding change. It was the young people that took the arrests. It was the young people that was criticized. But it was also the young people that got organized and said no more. It was also the young people that said, it's been too long, and we know that the system is guilty as hell. And until we come together as one, gay, straight, black, white, Muslim, Christian, that's when we're going to move stuff. Even now, when you look across the country, young people continue to lead the way. If it's school shootings, it is the young people at the forefront saying that we need to do better. We need background checks. We need to make sure that these guns are out of people's hands so they're not brought into our schools. The moral of the story is, no movement, even going all the way back to when Martin Luther King was around. Of course, we need our elders to give us the knowledge and the strength to move forward, but there was no movement that wasn't started without young people. Sometimes we may not know exactly how to do it or how to start it, but as long as we move forward together as one, we will make a huge change, and we are starting to do it. So before I leave, I do want to leave with a chant that we did in Ferguson. Duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Now, when we did this, we were in the streets, and I understand right now we're in an auditorium, but I want you guys to get loud, because the second time we screamed as loud as we can. So I want you guys to get loud with me, because I can't get too loud because I'm on a mic and I don't want to mess it up, so you have to help me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 Thank you, guys.